Good afternoon, folks, or good morning. Thanks for joining this afternoon's live stream. And today we get to look at some really good, exciting new stuff which has come to Capture One mobile. More on that in a second. If you're in our live streaming room, welcome to you. If you're over on YouTube, welcome to you guys as well. If you would like to ask a question, those of you in the live streaming room, you can do so by going into the Q&A tab, and that would just keep those questions separate from the chat. We've got Helen and Victor joining us as well, so they'll be able to answer any of your queries, and I'll do my best to answer some as well. If you want to hide that chat, you can do so by clicking the little drop down arrow, and that will give you a bit more space on screen. As I said, if you are on YouTube, then drop a comment in there as well, and I will also see those, and we shall try to answer them too. All right, so today we are looking at Capture One Mobile. And a bunch of other accessories that I've got going on here that we're going to talk about. This is when I discovered there wasn't quite enough room on my desk this morning, and I kept knocking stuff over, so now I've kind of rigid mounted the iPad a little bit better, so let's see how that goes. All right, so yesterday we launched Mobile 3.0, which had 3 extremely important additions, and extremely important because one, it just makes the whole platform of mobile, if you like, much easier to use by itself. And also, if you would like to use it in conjunction with Capture One on your desktop. So several of you will be purely working on Capture on mobile, and that's fine. But if you want to kind of start here, finish in desktop, you can do so, but also come back to mobile as well, if you wish. So we've got session support. If you don't know what sessions are, we'll expand on those a little bit in a minute. Using external storage, which is super exciting because that opens up a whole bunch of possibilities. And Retouch Faces, so being able to retouch directly on the platform as well. Now, today I'm using an iPad, rather obviously, but everything you see today is equally available if you want to use your iPhone. Now, a little bit easier if you're on later iPhone 16, 15, 14. I can't remember when USB-C came out, but if you've got USB-C on your iPhone, that just makes everything way easier for attaching storage, tethering cameras, and so forth. So let's start and talk about sessions. So what you'll notice, so by the way, we've got different ways to look at the iPad. So this, I'm sharing this wirelessly, which is why the contrast looks a little bit on the hefty side. And to be honest, trying to balance the overhead camera, this one here, for the screen to look decent and skin tones and everything else is almost a nightmare. So everything's a compromise, if you like, but you get the idea. You'll be able to see what's going on the iPad, and today isn't about color accuracy, calibration, or any of that stuff. So sessions, first of all, so what is a session? Now, when Capture on Mobile first came out, the only thing you could do was, if you like, store images in a catalog. So if you like, a central database on the iPad itself. If you wanted to get images out of Capture on Mobile to, desktop or something like that, you would have to export them as EIP files or export the originals and so forth. So it was a bit of a two-step slower process. But what we have now, as I said, is the ability to create sessions. So up here in the top left-hand corner, this is new. So if we look under here and tap on new, you'll be able to see new catalog or new session. So the ability to create one or the other. So if we go back and just pick on new session for a second, first of all, it's going to ask me, what do I want to name my session? So let's just call this, if I tap in here, we call this Live PM. And storage location we come back to, but by default, it will be stored in the Documents folder under Capture One in Files on your iPad. We'll have a look at that in a second. So let's create that. Now we've got a new document, if you like. So on desktop, they are actually referred to documents as well. So my document here, Live PM, this is what we've created. Capture One is empty. So if you like, we've closed down our old document that we were working with and created a brand new one. And by default, in a Capture One session, if you haven't used one, creates a capture, output, and a selects folder. Now, if we go to our Files app for a second, and then look at Capture One, like so. Sorry, not iCloud Drive on my iPad. Thought that's weird stuff. Capture One. We look at Documents, and we can see the one that we've just created. So you can see here, Live PM. If we tap, go into that, you can see the 3 folders that have been created: Capture, Output, Selects, and Trash. These ones down here, Capture, Output, Selects, Trash, and the co-session DB, which is just, if you like, the brains and the gubbins of the session. So if we go back into Capture One, down on the left-hand side, we've got the folder browser, Capture, Output, and Selects. This little symbol here that you can see, that means this is the folder that is currently designated as the capture folder. So if we connect up a camera, which I might do later, and shoot a picture, it would go straight there. So that is your session. It's the identical structure on Capture One desktop. If you want to, tapping on the 3 dots, you can add additional folders inside there if you wish. Import photos into here, rename it, move it, and so on and so forth. All of that fairly self-explanatory. And don't forget the really important thing, which is often overshadowed and forgotten about, is that we can share everything online to a gallery as well, which we can also do. So that is your simple session structure. The idea being you shoot or import into the capture folder. When you export, you can drop them in the output folder. And if you want, you can drag and drop any selects into the selects folder if you wish. Now, you don't have to use those folders, but by doing so, if you then want to move that session, this one here, which we're going to do a bit later as well, then it's much, much easier if everything is kind of contained in those standard folders. Okay, so let's actually import some pictures just to give you an idea. So I am going to first of all import from a memory card. So we need to grab ourselves a cable and connect this rather enormous SD reader, but it is super fast, so there is a benefit. Let's just hook that into the side. That's going to show up over here on the left hand side as untitled. As it is a memory card now, I've kind of hacked this memory card and dumped a load of images on it from different cameras, so they don't necessarily always show up. So if I'm going to go into Files and go into Untitled, I'll just import from this folder. So if I open this folder like so, Capture One's going to show me a bunch of pictures that are on this memory card right here. So I'm going to select all and then import these over like so. Now these are dropping straight into the capture folder. If you didn't have this folder selected before you started the import process, you'll actually get a prompt on screen that says which folder do you want to import into. Capture, Output, Selects. Generally, you're going to be going into the capture folder. So now we've imported our pictures. Again, if we go back to our Files app, you'll see under here, under Capture, there's all our pictures, like so. So let's go back into Capture One. We've got all our images. We can obviously open and browse and so on and so forth. So that is stored inside the file system on the iPad like so. Now we can also use external storage, which we'll get onto in a second. But what if you've been working on this and you wanted to move that over to a different computer? So of course, there's lots of ways that we can do that. Now, looking into our Files app here, the keynote amongst you will see, okay, oh, David's got an iCloud drive, he's got Dropbox and so on. Could I just create my session onto a cloud storage service like Dropbox or iCloud Drive? Technically, you could, but what we've discovered is that people are sometimes not super diligent about letting the cloud service do its full download of everything before you shut down the app or shut down the iPad. And we've also discovered iOS is not quite as good as multitasking as OS on the Mac. So what we suggest you do is create your session on the file system of the iPad, do what you need to do, and then of course you can pick it up and move it to the cloud storage of your choice, let it sync, and then pick it up at the other end, wherever that may be. So other options, like if I long press and hold on here, I can share this. Is Wi-Fi on my laptop? Yes. So if I just send this to my MacBook Pro, which you can't see on screen, but you will in a minute. So if I accept that, that's going to receive that session over on my MacBook Pro. So you can see receiving AirDrop like so, that's sending over. You can see the sending here like so. So that's, you know, an easy way to get your session from mobile over to your desktop. So if we look over here on the desktop, show this in Finder, where are you? Let's look over here, just move this window across, double click. That's going to open up in Capture One Desktop, as you can see. And if I'd done any adjustments, done any color tags, anything like that, it's all there. So really simple to just move a session over, especially if you're sitting in your office, living room, whatever, and you're directly next to your desktop and you want to get that session over. AirDrop's just a really super simple way to do it. Lisa says, finally! Yes, finally, it does feel a little bit like that, but it wasn't the easiest thing in the world to implement this. And obviously when it comes to file management, it can't be a half-assed job, or it can't be unstable or any of that kind of stuff. So we just had to make sure everything was working super nicely. Okay, so that's storing to the internal memory of the iPad and then transferring it across via AirDrop. You could have, of course, copied it to an external hard drive. More on these in a second. You could have dumped it on your cloud storage and waited for it to upload and so forth. So lots of different ways to do it. Okay, let's unplug the card reader because we don't need this now, and talk about if we want to use this guy, external storage. So this is your typical SSD drive, 2 terabyte, this one, very nice one. Super fast, good capacity, so on and so forth. So we like using something like this. Oh, sorry, just silencing my phone before it rings. Let's see. So if you want to use something like this, and you want to tether your camera, or you want to power your iPad, then we're getting into the discussion of, well, first of all, there's only one USB port on the side of this iPad right here. So how do we connect all this stuff, and how do we maintain reliability, good connection, good tether connection, all of that stuff? Well, in comes these guys, which are USB hubs. Now, a couple of critical things that you need to think about when you're shopping for one of these. So I made a mistake. This is the first thing I bought. I thought that'll do, it's cheap, that's going to work. So it's got 4 USB-C ports, which you can see, and it's got a power input at the bottom. But I didn't read the specs properly and made the fatal mistake of this one not being power delivery. So this is only like a 5 volts in basic USB power. So when you're shopping for your USB hub, then you must ensure that it's power delivery spec, because I'll talk some nerdy numbers in a second, but I was really surprised how much power this draws and how much power this drew as well, just in importing in files. So this one is from a company called Satechi. They make quite nice stuff. My older hub, which I've had for quite a while, also Satechi, would probably work, but the disadvantage with this one, actually it did work, so I tried it, is that it's only USB-A. So you're not getting the full speed benefit of USB-C. So you want to be shopping for something that is power delivery enabled. And this particular one of the sockets, you can see the little lightning bolt on it, is power delivery enabled, and all the other ports at 10 gigabyte speed as well. So if you want to tether, or you're swapping information to a hard drive, you're going to get the maximum speed as well. So first of all, this guy goes in like so. Second of all, where's the power one? Actually, I'm going to flip this the other way around like that. So this one goes in. I've got some power over here reaching across the desk. Which one was power delivery? once more, this one here. Sorry, my head is in the way. So I'm going to plug this in like so. And you'll see my iPad is now charging, and looking on my little nerdy power supply here, that's currently pulling about 9 to 10 watts. So not a crazy amount, but still some. Let's also plug in the hard drive. So this can go anywhere. Let's stick it in this one over here, like so. So now SSD is connected. We're looking files in a second, and we're now pulling 14, no, actually nearly 18 watts. So we went from, 8 to 9 watts up to 18 watts. So this guy is actually chewing quite a lot of power, which is really important to have the power delivery, because when I use this, €10, $10, £10 solution, nothing worked. When I'm using the obviously $50, £50, €50 solution, everything's working quite nicely. So buy cheap, buy twice, basically. So don't go basic when you're shopping for a USB hub. Just checking on the questions. Billard asked, does AirDrop move files with layers? Yeah, so AirDrop moves everything. So it's just exactly the same as like moving a session from, one desktop to another desktop. Capture One Mobile uses the same engine, the same quality, everything else. Yeah, so completely the same experience. Dom was saying on YouTube, actually, like, good point, Dom, to ratify what I said. I found with cloud storage that even with session folder properly downloaded, opening an existing Capture One app will hang drastically and crash. So yeah, you do have to be careful with the cloud storage. So before you do anything critical with cloud storage, test it, test it, test it. I saw a post from someone today who'd been using iCloud with no issues whatsoever, but obviously critical situation, do test it and see what's happening. All right, so we've done our connections like so. So we've got power. Hang on, let's move my big head. So we've got power popping in here. We've got our hard drive connected, and yeah, and we've got our hub connected like so. Now, of course, if you're in a studio or on location and you want to shoot tethered and you've got all this stuff hanging off your iPad, it's not super elegant, right? Fortunately, this is where we can get excited and talk about gear, because there's lots of manufacturers out there building really nice iPad accessories now. Since iPads have become mega powerful, like we're up to M4 chips in iPads now. I've got a feeling there's an M5 coming soon, I'm not sure. Now that we're up to that, these little guys are pretty powerful. So I'm just going to show you a quick picture. Where are we looking? We want to look at this for a second. Actually, I'm going to play you a clip first. So we made some new tutorials last week with the help of our good friend of the house, Tom Barnes, so about connecting your camera shooting in the studio. So I'm going to play you a little 15-second clip of the setup that we had there, and then talk about that, in a tiny bit more detail as well. So let's roll this.
Let's get my Canon R5 connected. Now, obviously, if you want to use an external storage device or extra power, you are going to need a USB hub. Look for the ones that have got multiple USB ports and PD, now power delivery. That is going to mean that you have a constant good charge on your iPad and a stable connection.
You lost the sound. Thanks, Helen, for nudging me. Sound should be back now. Sorry about that. Yeah, I just muted myself when I switched this scene. So what I was gibbering on about was that what you see here was just a freeze frame of the video that we were looking at earlier. So the same hard drive which is up there, and also the same USB hub that you can see, and also that thing underneath with TB on it, Tom Barnes, that's a V-Lock battery source. So you've got power going into the hub, you've got the hard drive, and that red cable kind of looming out the screen before us is going to the camera, and all of that is connected into the iPad. So it's all perfectly capable of supporting this, but as I said, having all that kind of stuff hanging off your iPad while you're trying to shoot tethered doesn't look very elegant and destined to fall off as well. So let me go back to that picture and not mute myself this time. Very unprofessional. Yep, you can still hear me. So the benefit of these cheese plates, as they're known, is that you can attach all kind of stuff on the back of it and in any configuration, and it's all safe and secure. Cable ties work as well, nothing wrong with those, and great. So this one is from LS Digi. So I'll repeat that, that's why you can see LS on the screw there. So LS Digi, based here in the UK. And as they're all standard threads on the back, you can buy all kinds of gear to bolt onto this. Sky's the limit, screen shades. You can see in the bottom left, there's a little Peak Design strap hanging off. So that fits with things like this. So it's just got that little receptacle for taking that button that you can see hanging off on the bottom left-hand side. So you can put, neck straps, wrist straps, hang it across your body if you're shooting tethered, all that kind of stuff. As I said, this one is from LS Digi, but have a look around. There's lots of different manufacturers making this kind of stuff. But if you do want a nice setup in the studio, then this is the way forward, because you do have a lot of extra stuff connected to the iPad. So getting back on track now, sorry about the lack of sound. So we've got our external hard drive attached. How do we actually use this and work on this with a session? So if I go back into the document browser up here again, so if I go to new, like so, let's do new session once more. Helps if you actually press it, new session. Let's call this, delete here, external SSD, like so. And now if we go to select, we can actually pick the SSD there, and I'm going to just store it straight there. Sesh, like so, and create that. So now we've got, a complete brand new empty session, which is actually on this SSD, like so. Okay, shall we import those bits and pieces again, and let's really see how much power we're pulling out of interest. So right now, so for those of you who are not finding this interesting, I'm sorry. So currently we're pulling about 20 watts, supporting all this stuff. So if I plug in the card reader as well, that's gone up to about the same, because nothing's really happening. I want to import, so I'm going to go to files once more. Now it's asking me, because I didn't have that folder selected, where do I want to import to? So I want to import to the capture folder, like so. Try that again, capture folder. That's my pen not working. Oh, next. There we go. So now I want to grab from my memory card over here, and then I'm just going to grab those same files and open like so. So I'm going to select all and import. So now if I just wander out of interest, yeah, we're now pulling 27 watts. So this little guy and importing to that hard drive is roping in 7 to 8 watts more actually. So we're peaked up at about 35 then. So the point of me reeling off these, horribly nerdy numbers and everything is that if you don't have, a decent power supply being injected to support all this extra equipment, you can get disconnects, and it happened to me this morning in that I was importing onto the hard drive and I'd had the power put in, but actually the power I was injecting was actually not a true power delivery. So you could see the iPad, it kept momentarily disconnecting. So you could see it was charging, then it would drop off, charging, and then it would drop off. And when it dropped off, obviously system upset, and then I couldn't import anything else. So really important if you're going to go for a setup like this, which is fairly demanding power-wise, is get a decent power delivery source. If you're interested in how I know all these numbers, it's because I've got this ridiculous battery running everything, which has got a nice display which shows us what's exactly being pulled. But you could use, you know, in that example I showed V-lock battery, mains power supply. If you're not, you know, wheeling around all over the place, that works nicely as well. Okay, so we've imported images onto our external SSD. I'm going to unplug the memory card because we don't need that. And then actually we can segue quite nicely into Retouch Faces, because then what we can do is take the session we had on here and just plug this into my desktop, and you can see how that works. Before we do that, let's just check the questions. Michael says, LS Digi, nice setup equals, whoa, just looked at the price. Yeah, now it's important to point out, like a lot of this high-end stuff comes at a price. And there's good reason for that, because it's built in short runs. It's not like they're selling thousands and thousands of them from, you know, US, China or whatever. It's short run stuff. A lot of it is hand assembled or hand finished. So the price is the price, basically. But as I said, there's all kinds of different options out there. I mean, even this one I'm using, it's just like a small clamp that clamps around the tablet. But for example, I would not trust this in a studio environment because it's not massively secure, and if someone would bump into it, it would knock it off. And there's only like 3 threads on the back for mounting stuff, and it just wouldn't work. So if you're, you know, seriously doing stuff in the studio or on location with your iPad, then it's really nice to have a secure, solid setup which you can use time and time again. Cool. Keith was asking, how many iPads can I run on the same license? Well, as it's downloaded from the App Store, I don't think there's a theoretical limit. Actually, there might be a theoretical limit, but it's probably in the thousands. So unless you've got thousands of iPads, Keith, I think you'll probably be all right. iPad Air M3, don't be sad. That's a great piece of kit. So really fast, super thin, super light, speedy. This is an M1 iPad Pro, so it's about 4 or 5 years old now, and still runs pretty good, to be honest. So don't be sad about latest equipment like that. If I use my iPad with a keyboard, are there any shortcuts I can use? Good question, Joshua. I'm not sure. Maybe Helen or Victor know the answer to that question, but I can't remember off the top of my head. If you use a mouse, you do actually see the trackpad, a little blob moving around, which actually is quite a nice way to use it as well. I know that much, but I don't know the rest. Right, just checking on your other questions. How do finished files get into the export folder? Kay was asking. Well, we'll do that in a minute, and then you'll be able to see. Okay. So let's look at Retouch Faces. So if we just drop into this image for a second. By the way, if you are right-handed or left-handed, depending on how you want to use the interface. So this was designed in that if you were holding the iPad, you could use it with 2 hands. So you had your adjustment wheel here. So if I wanted to, let's just hide that, sort out the blemishes, for example, then I can scroll this wheel down like so, and then hey presto, if we do a before and after, just with a long press, you can see what blemish removal has done. Now, if you prefer to work with tools on the right hand side, you can do this, and there's actually a little known shortcut which I really like, which is if you press on the thing or the adjustment that you want to do, press and hold, you can actually slide your pencil down or your finger, whatever you're using, and you see over here the wheel is moving like so. And then when you let go, then your menu pops up. So I particularly like working in that way. So try both out. You might find one works better than the other. So blemish removal, as you can see, does a really nice job. Let's bring the thumbnails back up and let's kind of open this image. Close that for a second. Do a similar thing. So blemish removal, if I drop that up, you can see what it's doing. Now, if you're used to working on desktop, then you'll know we recently added a blemish protection. So if it's removing something that you don't want it to, like over here, for example, let's just go back, like over here, then you'll be able to protect that. Some additional things like that will come to the mobile platform as well. Now, a lot of the time, the algorithm does a really nice job of keeping blemishes, keeping actual things on the face that you want to keep. So if we go here and drag this up, for example, you can see the blemishes are taken away. So if I do before and after, but it keeps the actual features on the face that you want to keep as well. So you've got your blemish protection, you've got dark circles which just lighten under the eyes a little bit, like so. Doesn't require you creating layers or anything like that. And then finally, or almost finally, even skin, which is probably easier for you to try in your own images. And this is if there's greater areas on the face of contrast, then it will flatten out the contrast between those as well. So if we just do a before and after, you can see the effects of the retouching like so. Texture, if we zoom in a little bit more, by default, whoops, where did my overhead camera go? Interesting. Let's just try that again. Maybe it turned off for power. Okay, let's see. Maybe the battery's dying on. It shouldn't be, it was fully charged. What was I saying? Oh yeah, so for texture, so as a default, it's on 0, which we feel is a good balance. So if you want to have more or less texture on the skin, then you can adjust that also with the texture slider too. So texture minus 92 is probably a little bit crazy because that will soften it off to quite a large extent. But otherwise, you can see what's going on. Contouring. This will actually darken areas of the face which are in shadow. So just to give you a little bit more structure on the face, if you like. So again, before and after, like so. I'm doing these adjustments greater than I probably normally would, just so you can see the effect. Finally, at the top, you've got impact, and what impact does is ramp down the effect of the retouching. So if you feel you've overdone it a little bit, let's switch back to this one. Overhead camera's having a day. If we switch back to this one, then what you'll see is that as I ramp down the impact, then it will blend back through the image underneath. So it's a nice way of being able to, if you like, moderate the retouching without having to adjust every single other slider. Cool. Let's just check on questions for a second. Nada says this is only on iPads, not on MacBook. No, it's on Capture One on desktop as well. So everything that you're seeing on mobile came after what was already on desktop. So just check on desktop that you're running the latest version. Okay, you're probably on an older version which didn't have those tools. Okay. Yeah, so Nada, if you're on 16.6, you have all this stuff. So we'll have a look in a second so you know where to find it. Could just be you need to add the tool tab and then you'll find it. Okay, I think question-wise we're good. So as I said, we'll be able to then move this session with all the adjustments that we did over onto our desktop just by unplugging and plugging in my SSD. So before we do that, let's just go in and let's just add a few like star ratings and color tags and things to a couple of images. We know we edited this one, so let's put a green tag on that and 5 stars. Let's go and grab my handsome colleague Deji and we will do a quick retouch on him as well. Bit of contouring, why not? So you can see the effect of the contouring just on the sides of the face there, like so, but it does a pretty nice natural job. Let's drop that down a bit as well. So we've done a few edits. If you remember, it was on our hard drive. Let's get a few seconds. I think it overheated, actually. Let's get a few seconds of our overhead camera again before it shuts down. So everything was on this hard drive. Now, before I pull this hard drive, you either want to quit Capture on Mobile or just switch to a different catalog. So let's just open this one up. So now I can safely pull this. I'm going to plug this into my desktop and we're going to switch over to Capture One. And we're going to turn that overhead off so it charges a bit. And we're going to close this session. And we're going to go and browse this hard drive. External SSD sesh. So that's the one we made on the iPad just a second ago. So if I double click on this, then that will open this up into Capture One. If we go over here and look at the retouch, so Nadar, if you can't find it, if you right click and say over here, add tool tab, just make sure you've got your retouch tool tab added. And you can see we've got our blemishes slid up there. Who else did we edit? So let's go down to Deji. You can see we've got the contouring and so on and so forth. So we've got this one here, which had our star ratings, if you remember, and the blemishes and dark circles and everything as well. So yeah, pretty straightforward and simple that you can just either work off that external drive or copy a session from your hard drive to your desktop or whatever. You get the idea. There's no real disadvantage of working off the SSD, especially something like this where it's nice and fast, good high-speed connection. Really no disadvantage to doing that. Okay, anything else we need to cover? Oh yeah, just to keep that thought in your head. So when if you're going to start shooting tethered in anger to your iPad, let's just bring iPad up a second. If you do have a camera connected and you're shooting, actually I haven't tested this, so I'm not sure if it's going to work. But if you do have a camera connected, there we go. Let's connect this camera. And you want to shoot, and you want to make sure you've got your adjustments copied from the image to the next. If we go into, let's just open something up for a second. So over here on the bottom left, let's just bring this up a second. Bear with. So over here, this button here. So this one will apply adjustments to next capture. So really important. So if you've made any edits, let's just make a quick new session for a second. New session. Let's call this shoot, like so. Create that. We're going to shoot into our capture folder. Let's just take a picture. By the way, this XH2 is connected wirelessly, which is why it's a little bit slower to download the picture, because I'm shooting raw of this lovely picture of a nice Capture One travel mug. But what I'm saying is what's important is that if you are shooting tethered and you want adjustments to copy from one to the other, then this button must be on. So if I just bumped up the contrast for a second and pulled down the highlights and took another capture, so back into camera, took another shot, then it would copy those over from one image to the next. So really important. But yeah, shooting wirelessly, very easy to do on Capture on Mobile. Don't forget you can do it. And I'm impressed with wireless capture now. It used to be so slow and really kind of almost not usable. But with the advances in wireless connectivity on cameras, obviously your own Wi-Fi network's getting better, then it just becomes, you know, a much better feasible way to shoot on location, certainly, because then you don't have the added hazard of a big cable which you might trip over, or if you're outdoors and you don't want your nice beautiful cables trailing along in the mud or the dirt and the rain, then it's actually a really nice way to work. So if you haven't explored wireless capture, then go ahead. Basically, the rule of thumb is that your camera needs to be connected to the same network that your capture on mobile devices, iPhone, iPad, or whatever, and then it will show up literally in the, we just drop back here a second. Oh, hang on, let's wake you up. Then it will literally show up over here, and then you just need to hit connect, and that's it. Depending on the camera, depending on the size of file that you're shooting, depending on your network, it's difficult to say how long it's going to take for an image to come across. Fastest I've seen, probably Canon R5 Mark II, Nikon Z9s. They're super speedy for wireless connection. This XH2 you saw was what, 4 or 5 seconds for a raw file, something like that. It was pretty good. JPEG is obviously going to be even quicker if you're doing that, but it now has become a reality to be able to do that. Paul says, I'd be more impressed if Capture provided Android support and being constantly enthralled with Apple's products. Don't know if enthralled is the right word. The issue with Android, or maybe not the issue with Android, that's not fair to say it that way. The benefit with the Apple product is the close relationship between iOS and OS on the desktop. So a lot of what you see running in Capture One in terms of the, let's go back to something more interesting. The different, oh, that's on my external hard drive. So yeah, if it can't locate it, you get a handy message like that. So let's go back to this one. The benefit of OS and iOS is that they share a lot of the same coding. So we can lift stuff from the desktop and put it onto iOS. Not just simply plug and play, but to do the same thing with Android would do a complete rewrite of everything. And right now, with all the other things that we want to do, we just don't have the time and resources to do it. Obviously, if that changes in the future, then of course we can do so. But right now, we just can't do it. So sorry to disappoint you, Paul. It's not because we have some weird love affair with Apple. Capture One is on Windows too, don't forget that. It's just the ability to be able to bring that across from OS to iOS. Great. Keith had a question which said, if I edit and store the images on an external SSD, what does the workflow look like when connecting to C1 desktop? Will C1 desktop see all the edits easily? Did you miss that bit, Keith? We just did that. So yes, it will see everything. Oh, specified it will be done in a catalog. Yes, same thing for a catalog as well. So it makes no difference. Whether you're doing it internal, external, that's fine. So great. Okay, just checking on questions over here. How do you identify version 3 in the App Store? So if you look in the App Store, it will tell you the version on the page itself. If you look in the camera settings menu, and then not camera settings menu, what are you talking about, David? Let's go back out a second. Into settings and feedback, you'll be able to find the version of Capture One that you're running there as well. Let's see. Let's just check under Q&A. I think we are pretty good. Yeah. So just to recap, session support, external hard drives, face retouching as well, all included on mobile. You can move quite nicely from mobile to desktop as we saw, retaining all your edits. If you want to go back the other way, desktop to mobile, nothing to stop you doing that as well. So either keep your session or catalog on an external hard drive, or copy it to a drive, move it, airdrop it, etc. Lots of different ways that you can do it. Remember, if you're using cloud storage, don't work on the cloud storage, shoot to the internal drive of the iPad first, move it to your storage when you're ready to pick up elsewhere. So if you follow those rules, you should have a very nice, happy experience using Capture One Mobile. Also, don't forget in mobile, as we didn't mention it, is that, what should we plug in? Hang on, let me just close down the session that was on Capture One. I'm going to eject that hard drive. I'm going to try and eject that hard drive, but the OS won't let me. There we go. Hard drive ejected. Going to plug that back in, and let's open up on here. Open from files. So on this hard drive, let's open up this guy again, like so. And don't forget, if you want to, you can share this online. So if I copy that share link for a minute and say done, you can see the little progress wheel at the top next to capture. So that's uploading everything online. And then you can share that link. So we can either go into Safari here, and let's just copy that like so. So now we can see all those images have been shared online. So you could also be doing that whilst you're shooting tethered, and it will instantly upload online, that you'll be able to follow and see that, or share that link, so anywhere in the world can see what you're doing. And of course they can also go back and adjust star ratings and color tags. So let's just change this one. If I go back into Capture One, you now saw it in front of your eyes, the rating and color tag changed like so. So don't forget you can do that. Shoot tethered into an external hard drive, sharing a gallery online and retouching at the same time. Don was saying, is share online session preserved between devices? Well, if you actually look at my desktop, so let's open up, because I'm running the same account, so obviously you're going to be running the same account that you have on mobile and on desktop. So if I go into my share online gubbins here, and if we scroll down, you'll find this is the one that I just shared. So if I copy this link and go over to Safari, which isn't open, and it's on the wrong monitor, of course. If we put the link in there, then we can see the same one. So yeah, I'm on the same account on mobile, I'm on the same account on desktop, so you'll be able to have access to those links as well. So yeah, the online session is preferred, which has been good. No one's asked, I don't think, unless I didn't see it, about iOS 26. That's fine. So you can happily go ahead and update to iOS 26 if you want to. Is Capture One okay for macOS Tahoe? I wouldn't if I were you. I would say the general rule of thumb would be to wait for a .1 release. That's my rule of thumb. If you want to dive in and put on Tahoe on a production computer where you've got, I guess, earning your living on, then I wouldn't if I were you, to be honest, because there's always some little niggly thing that needs to be fixed. And it could be something really basic, like, I think one year, I can't remember what it was, but it messed up my printer driver at the time, so I couldn't print anything. Which might sound minor, but when you rely on, printing stuff out, like my queuing notes here, then that's a big thing. So I'd say hold off on Tahoe. I think you're fine on iOS 26. That's my advice anyway. We don't have official support yet for Tahoe as far as I can remember. Correct me if I'm wrong, Helen and Victor, but I don't think we do. But my personal advice would be to not. Okay. Question Helen was prompting me. Someone was asking about edits made with tools that do not exist in mobile when you move from desktop to iPad. They will actually show, but you just won't be able to edit it. So if you've added, I can't think something off the top of my head, it will actually be displayed on mobile with those edits. You just won't be able to get to it, if that makes sense. There was a question I saw about tethering. where was that? Maybe it was David was saying, I didn't see anything on the iPad screenshot that suggested you can shoot tethered directly. Absolutely. So you can go wired, you can go wireless. As you saw with me, is my camera still connected? Yes, it is. So yeah, you can go wireless. I've got all my camera controls that I can adjust here as well. So if I want to tweak the ISO, aperture, I can do so. If I want to see live view, then yep, I've got live view as well. Like so. If I put my hand in front, there it is. So yes, you can absolutely shoot tethered. So yeah, that's been around for quite a while now, David. So yeah, with a cable or wirelessly. Okay, so also for just reading what Helen wrote about. Okay, so the build that we've tested is different to the one Apple released. So this has happened before actually. So manufacturers like us get you know, the beta releases of the iOS and so forth. And then you get one which of course is very close to the release. And in theory, they're almost the same, but in this case, it turns out they're not. So just because we have access to the latest beta doesn't mean it reflects what's going to happen in the release. So just be a little bit wary of that. Alex said, Tahoe has been working for me, the usual issue where camera connection. So not sure what you mean by that, Alex, but yeah, honestly, just wait a few months. There's probably nothing in there that, you know, that you couldn't live without for a little bit longer. Anthony says, do you encourage a stylus? I quite like working with the Apple Pencil, yes. Just because then it means your screen stays a bit cleaner and not splodged with fingerprints. So you don't have to use it, but when you're masking and that kind of stuff, it actually works quite nicely. Cool. Brilliant. Okay, well, if you have any other questions or issues or whatever, then of course you can reach out to support at any time or catch us on social media as well. So that was Mobile 3.0, lovely interoperability with desktop and mobile, using external storage, and of course retouching in the app as well. So go ahead and update and try all that. So thanks for listening today. I hope that was useful, and I look forward to seeing you all again in the future. Take care and see you soon. Bye now.